Thank you for joining us for Grim Advice with Gretta Myers. You've entered the grimoire. Let's turn the page together. How's that for a new intro? I mean, I kind of liked it. It was a little, I don't know, professional. We'll play around with it, figure it out. Well, here we go. Without further ado, the Pack of Ragamuffins. The rooster once said to the hen, "It is now the time when our nuts are ripe, so let us go to the hill together and for once eat our fill before the squirrel takes them all away." "Yes," replied the hen, "come, we will have some pleasure together." Then they went to the hill, and because it was a bright day, they stayed till evening. Now, I do not know whether it was that they had eaten until they were too fat, or whether they had become too proud, but they would not go home on foot, and the rooster had to build a little carriage of nutshells. When it was ready, the little hen seated herself in it and said to the rooster, "You can just harness yourself to it." "Ha! I like that," said the rooster. "I would rather go home on foot than let myself be harnessed to it. No, that is not our bargain. I do not mind being the coachman and sitting on the box, but I will not drag it myself." As they were thus disputing, a duck quacked at them. "You thieving folks, who told you to go to my nut hill? Well, you shall suffer for it," and ran with open beak at the rooster. But the rooster also was not idle, and fell boldly on the duck, and at last wounded her so with his spurs that she begged for mercy, and willingly let herself be harnessed to the carriage as a punishment. The little rooster now seated himself on the box and was coachman, and thereupon they went off in a gallop, with "Duck, go as fast as you can." When they had driven a part of the way, they met two foot passengers, a pin and a needle. They cried, "Stop, stop," and said that it would soon be dark as pitch, and then they could not go a step further, and that it was so dirty on the road, and asked if they could not get into the carriage for a while. They had been at the tailor's tavern by the gate, and had stayed too long over the beer, and as they were thin and did not take up much room, the rooster let them both get in, but they had to promise him and his little hen not to step on their feet. Late in the evening they came to an inn, and as they did not like to go further by night, and as the duck also was not strong on her feet, and fell from one side to the other, they went in. The host at first made many objections. His house was already full, and he thought they could not be very distinguished persons. But at last, as they made pleasant speeches, and told him that he should have the egg which the little hen had laid on the way, and should likewise keep the duck, which laid one every day, he at length said that they might stay the night. And now they had themselves well served, and they feasted and caroused. Early in the morning, when day was breaking and everyone was asleep, the rooster awoke the hen, brought the egg, pecked it open, and they ate it together, but they threw the shell on the hearth. Then they went to the needle, which was still asleep, took it by the head, and stuck it into the cushion of the landlord's chair, and put the pin in his towel, and at last, without more ado, they flew away over the heath. The duck, who liked to sleep in the open air and had stayed in the yard, heard them going away, made herself merry, and found a stream down which she swam, which was a much quicker way of traveling than being harnessed to a carriage. The host did not get out of bed for 2 hours after this. He washed himself and wanted to dry himself, then the pin went over his face and made a red streak from one ear to the other. After this he went over the kitchen and wanted to light a pipe, but when he came to the hearth, the eggshell darted into his eyes. "This morning everything attacks my head," said he, and angrily sat down on his grandfather's chair. But he quickly started up again and cried, "Woe is me," for the needle had pricked him still worse than the pin, and not in the head. Now he was thoroughly angry, and suspected the guests who had come so late the night before, and when he went and looked about for them, they were gone. Then he made a vow to take no more ragamuffins into his house, for they consume much, pay for nothing, and play mischievous tricks as thanks. Okay, so in the introduction, when I mentioned that some of the stories are weird, this is one of the ones I was talking about. I'm really not sure what the Brothers Grimm were going for here, but I have a few ideas. let's talk about balance. People love them a good shenanigan every once in a while. But almost everyone can agree there's a point when a joke or shenanigan goes too far. Especially when someone calls you out on that joke or shenanigan, and or even an ordinary lie, and instead of admitting to it, you double down. Like in the story when they show up at the inn, and he's like, no way am I letting you in, y'all seem sketchy. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. At that point, the animals could have been like, okay, sure, you're right, and just either slept in the inn with that honesty, or they could have, actually agreed not to do any mischief or any multiplicity of things instead of what they did. But they doubled down and went ahead, and when they had the very plain opportunity to stop, it was an opportunity right in front of them, a very easy way to, okay, that's it, that was enough, we're done, we're good. And they didn't. So let me stop beating around the dead horse bush and mixing metaphors, goodness, and get to my point. There's a very fine, very, very fine line between funny and mean. And it's different for every person. So if you care about the person, you should show that by putting forth the effort into figuring out where their line is and not crossing it. It's as simple as that. Because if you do, they will be hurt, no matter how much they say they aren't. If you look past that, you can most of the time tell, yeah, this hurt them. And therefore, your relationship with them might be hurt. And if you care about them, that's not something you'll probably want. So, find out where the people you care about lines are, especially if you show you care about people by humor, because humor can be a great way to show people who that you care about them. It can also be a very easy way to hurt someone on accident or on purpose. So find where those lines are and don't cross them. Really, it's just as simple as figuring out what people find funny and not funny, and not subjecting them to things they don't find funny. It's really not as hard as it might seem. And so, this has been Grim Advice with Gretta Myers. Thank you for joining us for this happily ever after, or not so happily ever after. Either way, this is the end for this episode, so tune in later to learn more, and we can turn a new page together.